In this lesson, we'll learn how we can easily apply additional deformers to a deformation layer and swap between them. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so I'd like to show you how we can have more than one set of deformation curves or bones on the same deformation layer. And I think you'll find this really useful, especially when you're animating your character and perhaps at some point in the animation you're wishing, man, I wish I didn't have just deformer bones on this arm. I wish I also had deformer curves because now I want to bend it in a certain way that I can't quite do with the deformer bones. So let's go ahead and zoom in here, just hitting 2 on our keyboard. We're going to focus on his right arm. So that's deformation arm 1, once again, in the layers section. Just clicking on that, and again, we'll come up here to our deformation toolbar, click on this button right here to show that rigged arm with the deformer bones. Okay, and if you recall, we added a little bit of movement to that arm, just setting some keyframes there and bending that arm with those deformer bones previously. Okay, so what I'd like to do in showing you how we can add another deformation, basically a rig to this arm, is over here in our layers section, I want to click on the layer for the arm itself, and I want to come to the cell right in front of that previous position in which the arm finally stops. Okay, so we're on cell 8, basically right after frame 7. All right, so that's where the arm stops its movement currently. Okay, and so we're going to come over here to our timeline toolbar. All right, now if you're not seeing this toolbar, you can come up to Windows, Toolbars, and it's down here towards the bottom. So just check mark that. Okay. So in our timeline toolbar, we're going to hit this button right here. This basically duplicates the drawing of the arm. So when we do that, we see that it goes back to its original state, all right, in the state of the arm as it was created. Okay, so it's basically like that, but it's treating it as a new drawing that isn't rigged. There's no deformers applied to it, okay? So now what we can do is, once again, come up here to our deformation toolbar. We can click on the rigging tool, setup mode, and what I'd like to do is this time apply deformer curves to the arm as opposed to the bones that we've had previously. As you can see there, just going back one frame. So we're going to come over here to our tool properties. I'm just going to click on the curve mode, and let's go ahead, drop in our offset point. We'll drop in a couple of curves here. Something like that. I'll grab my transformation tool, and I'll just adjust these Bezier handles really quick. Just kind of stretching them out there. All right, great. So that's looking pretty good. Now let's go ahead and exit setup mode. It's going to distort the arm, obviously, but that's okay. We'll click on the deformation arm layer, and then come up here and basically, as we've done before, copy our resting position, the state in which it was rigged, to the animatable position right here. As you can see, it's in green, so we can obviously move and animate it now. So what we want to do now is we can kind of compare. We can see how it's jumping in between deformers. We've got deformer bones and deformer curves. Now, the thing about the switching in between deformers is that they're not going to interpolate between one another, all right? It doesn't have that capability. But what we can do, if you're trying to keep your animation fluid, if he's swinging up his arm like this, basically bringing it back, and you want to switch to deformer curves but still keep that animation fluid, well, this is where we can use our trusty onion skin tool over here at the bottom of our toolbar to the screen left. Go ahead and click on that, and then still using our transform tool, we'll go ahead and rotate that arm, basically the arm that we have on frame 8 that we have rigged with deformer curves. And we can start to basically kind of manipulate it and get it as close as we can to that same position that we had, where we basically stopped it on frame 7, where it was rigged with deformer bones. Now you can basically control the reach of how far back your onion skin is going to show positions of the arm by just adjusting these little blue sliders right here, like that. So if you just want to see the previous position, you can. So that might help you a little bit. So just lining it up there as close as I can. So that's feeling pretty close right there. Okay, great. All right, now let's go ahead and come forward in time, say just a few frames, right? And still using my transform tool, let's say we want to continue swinging that arm up. Grab that curve right there. May want to kind of have it come up like that, kind of bend it like that. Okay, so let's say at this point in your animation, you wanted the arm to just feel a little bit more elastic, like you want to have a little bit of kind of whipping motion, a little bit of more follow through as opposed to how mechanical it initially was being animated, okay? You have that freedom now, and you can still keep your animation fluid by just kind of lining up those arm poses as you switch in between deformers and just doing it back to back basically on these two frames right here. And for our example, frame 7 and 8. So what we can do now is basically turn off our onion skin. We can hide the controls, and we can just kind of see how that's looking. So that's looking really nice. And so what's really cool is all of this, these two deformers, the bone deformers and the curved deformers, they're all on one deformation layer. And you can really have as many as you want. So let's say you want to switch back to bone at this point. Well, you don't have to re-rig it. What you can do is you can come over here, and rather than actually, instead of going over here and duplicating the drawing like we did before, just come over here to where it's already rigged with bone deformers. Click on one of these cells, any one of them, right-click it, go to Copy Cells from Timeline, and then come out here. Let's say you want to make the switch right about here. And then right-click and go to Paste Cells in Timeline. And you can basically see how it takes you back to that original state of the drawing. And it's already got the deformer bones dropped on it. So you can see how you can switch back and forth. Or you could duplicate the drawing and set up a different kind of deformation rig. Perhaps you want to rig the entire perimeter as we did with the body of our big-brained alien. So that's really stinking awesome. I think you'll find that it just gives you a lot of control. You may not be able to use it in every single situation, but again, just having that freedom to do that, I think you'll find very useful. One final thing we'll go ahead and go over is the network view. Again, this is all on one deformation layer. Let's go ahead and make a little bit of room here. So let's go ahead and find that arm that we're working on. So it's deformation arm 1. So again, just as we've done before in previous lessons, we can just click on this little arrow pointing towards the screen right. And if you recall, when we've done that in the past, you would usually see a module that says 1. Well, this time we have a second module that says 2. So this first module, that's basically the module for the bones. All right, so if you go into that, you can see the deformation bones. You got your offset point, your bone right here, your articulation point, and then that second bone for the forearm. Now we can go ahead and click right here to go back up and go back to where we were previously, where we can see both the 1 and 2 modules. So you have a second module here, which basically represents that curve rig that you set up, that curve deform rig. So you can click on that, and that'll take you into that chain where you have, again, we have an offset point, we have a curve, we had a couple of curves there. So again, you can go into either one of these. You can edit them just as we've done before. You could maybe drop in another curve if you wanted to, and you could do the same thing for the bone deformers as well. Okay, and you can hit top to go all the way back out to your initial tree. So that's really cool. Again, you still have the power to edit those different deformers. And again, you would probably have multiple modules, more than just 2, depending on how many different rigs that you created. Now, you're probably thinking, well, why don't you have 3? Because you have that third drawing right there. Well, that's just a copy of the first one. All right, remember we copied it. Now, if we made an entirely new one like we did for the curves, then you would and re-rig that, then you would have a third module and so forth. Okay, so I think again you'll find that really useful, really handy, especially when animating using deformer curves. It's a great way to rig your character and switch in between different deformers, whether it's bone or curve or even if you have a perimeter one set up. All right, so in our next and final lesson, we'll go ahead and basically set up a hierarchy arrangement for this character. Basically the same approach that we took with our alien tentacle space monster. So stick around and we'll see you then.